I'm really excited to introduce Susan J. Atkinson. Susan was born and raised in northern Staffordshire, England, and now makes her home in Ottawa on unceded Algonquin Anishinaabe land. Her work has won a number of awards and has appeared widely in journals, anthologies, and online. An earlier version of her most recent publication from Anthrocer Press, Alice in the City, was longlisted for Exile Edition's 2023 Ruth and David Lampe Poetry Award. Atkinson is the author of two poetry collections. Her debut collection, The Marta Poems, was published by Silver Bow Publishing in 2020, and her second, All Things Small, was also released with Silver Bow in April 2024. To find more, visit susanjatkinson.com or on Instagram at susanjatkinson. I'll put those links in the chat. Welcome, Susan, and congratulations on this collection. It's just a real pleasure to have you join us, and I'm looking forward to hearing you read, and I will pass things over to you now.
To the poet at the table. The poem I'd been trying to write left my pen only to resurface days later, clinging to the chandelier wire, well out of reach. It swung loose-limbed and leggy from crystal teardrops plump with dust. My fingers grasped at its lines, now so far away I couldn't even remember what they were. Gone, I thought, until one day the poem popped up unexpectedly at dinner. Afraid to startle it, I sat patiently as it busied itself between wine glasses, clambered over cutlery, and stumbled over plates to rest at your elbow. While I watched the poem, I also noticed you and how you left the table long after everyone else, as if you were looking for something. I noticed how your fingers chattered through crumbs carelessly dropped, as if you were searching for the taste of a word among the specks left, perhaps hoping for a morsel of conversation to save for later. I noticed how you spat back the bits you didn't want, bland cliches, watery and overchewed. I also noticed how, when you did leave, you took a small bag of leftovers, a collection of undigested scraps. And it was then I realized the poem I'd been trying to write had reappeared in the restless flutter of your fingers amongst the debris of dinner, which you collected and put in the bag to save for a poem of your own. So my opening poem is dedicated to all you poets out there, my friends, my peers. I often think of this poem as my sort of George Costanza imposter syndrome poem, because I'm like, oh my gosh, how could I possibly be writing amongst all of you incredible writers? And I'm so grateful and thankful that you're joining us tonight. So this is a very much anticipated event on our end. Many, many thanks to Candice, James, our publisher, and to Megan for not only putting everything together, but for attempting to do it several times. I think there's that saying, hey, third time is a charm, and this is the third time trying to do it. So thank you for being here with us. And as always, it's just such an honor and privilege to read alongside the lovely Doris Fiszer. So tonight I will be reading from my second full-length collection, All Things Small, which I'm very excited about. But please, just bear with me if I end up sobbing spontaneously. Don't worry, I am fine. I know that many of you here know what the last couple of years have been like. Anyway, let's get some of those heartfelt, heart-strung out poems out of the way, see how we do with them, okay? This love poem is for you, for Anthony. For you who sat at the bar in a downtown club. For you who willingly accepted my spontaneous tequila-fueled fearless kiss. For you who convinced me to remarry on a late December night when soft snow settled in halos on streetlights below, whose winter glow snuck through frayed shades as we wrapped presents to put under the tree. For you who encouraged me to rise with the pinking of the sky, to reach the dangling string of a dream and to hold it long enough to believe it. For you who held me through loss, lifted me through joy, anchored my way, surprised me with the small things. A favorite drink, a favorite book, a late night cheese and onion sandwich. For you whose touch is heat and keeps me young. Okay, we're good, we're good. A better word for yellow. Rain skitters in the trees, keeps us stitched to the deck. You suck on peach flesh, fling the pip over the rail, an open heart discarded. I watch, tell you I want to write about love. Start with a peach and its yellow, sticky juice on your fingers. I wrestle with yellow. There must be a word that says yellow better than yellow. I give up, only to get stuck on peach. And how Eliot sort of took that one. This next poem was actually an honorable mention in the New Quarterly's 2023 Nick Blatchford Occasional Verse. So I'm so happy that John Barden, the poetry editor at the New Quarterly, is here tonight because he'll get to hear me read it. Kiss me again like the second time. I ask you to tell me what you remember about our first kiss. I tell you it's for a poem. Be poetic, I say, but no cliches. Don't mention fireworks or waves crashing on a sandy beach. No talk of moths tempted by late night light or choirs of angels singing. You begin with the foot race dead on the middle of a snow-slick street. You remind me of stopping at the intersection to measure our height, how our bodies seamlessly threaded into one another's, how we lingered in the damp cold of December, reluctant to say goodbye, reluctant to break the magic. I remind you, no cliches, adding my memory of how it felt, the small of my back pressed against the driver's door of your burgundy Ultimate, which we traded a year later when we blended our families. You remind me of your left hand holding the back of my head, smoothing my hair from the whip of wind, your right light on my hip, your lips gentle against mine, like rose petals bursting in air. I let those cliches slip into quietness, hold the rest against my heart. All these years later, having never known before today that you also think of our second kiss with the fondness of a first, I ask you to kiss me again like the second time. The first was for dramatic effect. So, All Things Small was published by Silverbill Publishing in April 2024. Thank you, thank you, thank you, Candace. Thank you for all of your support and time and effort with my work. The book is divided into 5 sections: love, sorrow, memory, divorce, and then all those other small little things in between. The 3 poems I just read are from the section on love, and the next 3 are from sorrow. Obviously, the poems are written from very personal experience, but the hope is that you'll find them relatable, universal, familiar and similar in certain ways. My intention is not to make you feel sad, and certainly I'm not going to try to make myself feel sad either, but here goes. Driving west to say goodbye. March has come and gone. It has mirrored our grief and pressed cold palms against our sad, slack faces. We drive west to say goodbye. Along this stretch of straight grey road we have travelled so many times. Granite winks as winter rain slips between rocks, fool's gold polished by the sun. Your mother has promised each of our girls, her granddaughters, a gem from her jewellery collection, each carefully chosen to suit. Emerald for the eldest, sapphire for the second, topaz for the third, and for the youngest, a piece of tiger's eye to match her wild spirits, which your mother says was her as a child. Our girl takes great delight in thinking she could be like her grandmother, who once paid a neighbor's boy to play the piano during her lesson while she climbed out the window, soft notes trailing as she ran into the afternoon. In the warmth of the car, I close my eyes and for a moment see starlings like black stencils against my lids. I blink. They float like ash. During these days of loss, the rain is heavy on our bones. Our lovemaking has lapsed into the need to cling and be close, yet alone. Through the long drives, silence pools. So when we do speak, soup spoons dig into the air, ladling our words, cradling them in silence. At the house, we make lists of all that will need to happen. We drink champagne from Argentina, toast your birthday, eat piragi and claringas, and when it is time, we navigate our way home under a sky mottled with stars, pinpricks of silver dot quiet air, everything feeling smaller than before. Signs sneak up on small feet. There is a warning before a rainstorm. The open cup of an upturned leaf, a cluster of crows crowding dark branches ready for flight. In my hands, I feel the rain gather. My skin stretches over the swell of my thumb, and my bones ache to escape from under the tightness. Some signs we understand, but of final days we have no clue and cannot stop death once it has started. The pathology of a garden. It is time to coax the garden, bring it back from a long winter. We start with the neighbors climbing rows which had staggered over our fence, the effort leaving it slumped and tired. We are all tired, feeling like grass whittled by wind, flattened by your illness. We look for hope, desperate for a cure. A search begins amongst what is left of the perennials. My neighbor hangs over the wooden slats to prune the rows, shares home remedies with friendly chatter. It is becoming easier to speak of sickness to untangle sadness. She suggests we plant herbs, rosemary for tumors, St. John's wort for sleep, holy basil for stress. Tells me sow rock salt to kill the weeds, sprinkle eggshells to keep away slugs. I pull up clumps of last year's garden, clutch a bouquet of dead parsley, plant more, my neighbor says. It makes a great balm to soothe a blister, a boil, abrasions under the skin. I don't know whether to believe, but she too has suffered loss and would like a garden of green rather than the wild brambles that have overtaken the tulips and bearded iris, spring flowers that stutter under the weight of death. 3 crows, bray and baritone, stab at leftover grapes drooping from vines. Harbingers, perhaps, but we have stopped looking for signs. We wouldn't be able to read them anyway. So the next section is dedicated to my parents. My mother suffered from early onset of Alzheimer's, so dementia, and she lived in its shadow for almost 30 years. The doctors at the Bruyère Memory Clinic that helped my parents through that time wondered if it could have been my father's unfailing care and abundance of patience and this love that they had shared together that perhaps had helped her live such a long and a relatively good life, even with the disease. So the next 2 poems are from the section that's entitled Memory. And this first poem is called Shirt Brown Honesty, and it's actually dedicated to my dear, sweet, darling Penny. Shirt Brown Honesty for Penny. My mother flutters on the edge of her seat as the social worker assesses her need for extra care. Her eyes flash, 2 burning fireflies pulsing light and dark as she flits in and out of what it all means. My brother and I plead for her to answer sensibly. We want to jump in, answer for her. The social worker is patient and kind, clickety-clacks responses on her humming computer, fingers buzzing like bees over keys, recording information, landing on everything. Partway through the swarm of questions, the woman tells my mother 3 words: boy, man, ball. At some point during the meeting, my mother will need to recall and regurgitate what she is told. I have been waiting for this, but the words are different from the ones my friend warned me about. Over glasses of wine, we had giggled of how we would remind each other: shirt, brown, honesty. our foolproof way to cheat on the Alzheimer's test. My mother will not remember the words, will not even remember being told. By the time she is asked again, the nouns will have slipped through the honeycomb of her brain. My mother looks for my father in the garden. My mother looks for my father in the garden, finds herself swamped by Queen Anne's lace and can't remember what she's doing. Stands naked. Sun's heat, a serpent's tongue uncoiling along every inch of skin. Waltzing swallow stencils shadows across her bare chest. She murmurs with the birds. Grief lies in her bone. She spends hours hugging trees, scraping the insides of her curved arms. Scarlet lines scratched on skin, his name bitten into the ribs of her tongue. Okay, so we are going to move into another pretty heavy section because I just realized this is the book. But before I do that, I'll read you a nice little poem from the last section. On a spring afternoon, I write poems with my class of 4-year-olds. A little boy who holds his pencil like a weapon and cannot scribe his own name tells me spring is like orange circles, lots of orange circles that smell like his pocket and never stop. And my little shy girl whispers that the trees grow gold and sing, wish, wish, wish. Okay, but I'm still going to read 2 poems from that divorce section, but they're short. Obviously, you've probably cottoned on. I'm reading a little bit from each part of the book in the hopes that maybe you'd like to buy the book. You probably already have the book, but if you do, maybe you could have a second copy because then you can have one in the kitchen and you can have one in the bedroom, or, give them as gifts. But this is like about as subtle as I can be about. Please buy our books and please support the amazing, incredible Candace James and Small Press Publishing in Canada. Anyway, these are just 2 small poems that I've learned a few lessons along the way in my, very short life. Lessons part 1. I have learned to part the air with my arms when I run. I've learned that not all flowers bloom. I've learned to pick up broken glass carefully. And I've learned that with enough space, things move in between. Lessons part 2. I've learned to tiptoe gently in soft snow. I've learned to take corners slowly. I've learned the rose bush will die if not covered in winter. And I've learned to pretend the lover in my dreams is you. All right, now I really am going to lighten things up, and I'm going to read you a poem from the final section of the book. And this is a true account, or somewhat of a true account, of a somewhat true story that my father used to tell. The title's a bit of a mouthful, but you'll be able to gather from it that it is indeed a story. So, my father, having been invited to the rich people down the street's house for dinner, has himself a story to tell. Back then, 16 was leaving age, coming of age, and so my father was considered a man, not a boy, when invited to dinner for the first time to his, at the time, girlfriend's house. Back then, in a class system flourishing to ripeness, this girl and her family were certainly perching on a higher rung of the ladder, and because at this particular time my father was anxious to please and impress, he wore his Sunday best that late summer evening. He made the right sounds, cocked his head in that jaunty way that speaks interest, and answered all questions with a much smoother tone than what was familiar to his slightly common accent. His girlfriend preened proudly as the family enjoyed the fresh-faced young man's company. My father, after all, despite lack of money and status, was well brought up and nicely educated. He would become a pioneer in the world of computers. But on this particular evening, around this particular table, he found himself choosing to do something quite unexpected. A salad had been served. Back then, a delicacy mostly for the rich, and certainly something new for a northern working class lad. How grand the platter must have seemed, with sliced eggs cut like teardrops edging perfectly rounded slices of radish, the pink bleeding into white like the frilly hem of a party frock, blobs of salad cream, and ovals of cucumber, small boats in a sea of red cabbage. And in the center, on a bed of crisp green leaves, cushion, curl, and relaxed, a caterpillar. Now, what was my father to do? Back then, pointing out the furry fiend would surely risk suggesting the cook had not done her job. Yet leaving the food on his plate would perhaps imply his unsophisticated palate did not like something that to this family was pretty basic fare. These thoughts must have tumbled over one another, resting on what really was his only choice. With the correct knife and fork poised in his hands, my father rolled the caterpillar in its blanket and popped it in his mouth. As it turned out, my father never went to the rich people's house for dinner again, not because he had not been the ideal guest, but rather for his own twist of fortune. As it turned out, several nights after the caterpillar incident, the rich girl caught a cold and missed the sea cadet's dance, where my father would meet my mother. True story. Um, I do have one last poem that I would like to read before I do another huge round of thank yous. Candace, thank you for just being such a great publisher and for all of everything that you've done for my writing. And Megan, thank you for setting this up. And mostly thank you to everyone tonight for being here. Everyone, my family in Canada, my family here in Mexico. And I'm going to try. So, y para mi familia mexicana, don't worry, yo tengo muchos libros aquí. Well, a couple. So if you want to buy a book and you live here in Mexico, yo tengo dos, tres, cuatro libros. Anyway, this last poem, it's a love poem, and it is for my husband, my best friend, my partner, forever, Tony. In this, we find ourselves. As summer turns her back, buttoning her coat to meet fall, we escape to our cottage in the woods at the top of a lane. A recent illness has slowed your pace, shrunk your bones, so your shadow now dawdles, falling a step or two behind. While you convalesce, gathered in blankets that hem you to the porch, I spend long hours wandering the woods, breathing the trees. No longer a lost babe, I have learned these woods and the years that grow around us. My hair, piled into a messy bun, invites feathers and grasses to poke through the stray white strands, a nest fit for starlings to rest in. I collect twigs and pebbles, frayed birch bark pale as oysters, small treasures to set around our table. I fashion teacups from acorn caps, crochet bowls from half-bloomed clusters of Queen Anne's lace. Imagine them filled with fresh-picked blueberries and clouds of cream. These are some of the things that will keep you well. The way the light warms your shoulder, how patience and tenderness hand clasp around whom we have become. The trees that hid our lovemaking when our children were young shake rain-bruised leaves, catch the wind in song, 1,000 tinkling tambourines. At dusk, we make friends with a wild rabbit, eat gingerbread dipped in milky tea, and when we tuck ourselves in for the night, the moon slips through a slit in the curtain, silvering a trail of scattered breadcrumbs leading to our door. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you.
Thank
Good
you
job,
for that.
Susan.
Thank you for that wonderful reading, Susan. I invite you to take a bow.
Thank you. I did it.
You did it. I just really appreciated all the places you took us through your poetry, and I think you touched our hearts and made us laugh and made us smile and made us all feel things. And that is what being human and, being connected through words is. And I just appreciate that we could do this event. So thank you for writing this collection and being here to celebrate with us online.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
Wow. And all the way from Mexico, we're all in different time zones, so it's really even more exciting. So there's a lot of love for you in the chat, so be sure to check that out. And I am going to invite Doris to read next. So welcome, Doris Fiszer. Doris is the author of If I Were a River, published in 2023 by Silverbow Publishing. Her debut collection, Locked in Different Alphabets, also published by Silverbow Publishing, was a finalist for the 2021 Archibald Lampman Award. Recently, she took part in the writing of a collaborative poem, The Suitcase Poem, which was published as a chapbook by Above Ground Press in 2025. She was awarded the 2017 John Newlove Poetry Award and Trees Press 2016 Chapbook Award for The Binders, also a nominee for the BP Nicol Chapbook Award. Sasanka Wildflower, her third chapbook, was published by Bywords in 2017. Doris's poems have appeared in a variety of journals and anthologies across Canada and the US, and she serves as first reader for Arc Poetry magazine. That's very cool. We're really happy to have you here today, Doris, and I'll just invite you to share some poetry from If I Were a River. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Megan. Thank you for the wonderful introduction. It's so great being here. And first of all, I want to say thank you to everyone for being here today. Family, my kids are here, friends, fellow poets. Maybe it's evening or afternoon, depending on what part of the world you're zooming in from. Also, I would like to thank Candace James, publisher of Silverbow Publishing, for believing in my writing and publishing both my books, Locked in Different Alphabets and If I Were a River, and for organizing this dual reading. What an amazing experience. Thank you to Megan for hosting us. And as always, it is such an exciting experience to be reading with my dear, dear friend and amazing poet, Susan J. Atkinson. So before I read, I'd like to tell you a little bit about my book, If I Were a River. Just going to hold it up so you can see what a beautiful, beautiful cover it is. And this cover was designed by Candace, and it's one of her paintings called A River Runs Through It. So I think it's absolutely stunning, and it goes perfectly with my book and the themes in the book as well. Now, this book was written through the pandemic, and a time, I'm sure we all remember, of collected uncertainty, isolation, fear, school, work closures. Some of us lost loved ones. My husband, Bruce, ended up in hospital for 16 days in St. John, Newfoundland in 2022 with COVID and pneumonia after a 10-day tour of the province. It was a traumatic 16 days, but thankfully he recovered. Some of my poems that I will share today were prompted by my pandemic experience. Other poems are about my departed family members, my loved ones, who appear to me in my dreams. The first poem I'm going to read is I Linger in the Doorway, which is also the first line of my poem. I linger in the doorway of my childhood, though I've lost the key. I've lingered in all the other doorways where I've dwelled. The pages of the past crumpled on the steps like a rustle of autumn leaves. My first bike, first kiss, wedding day, each son's birth, divorce, remarriage, loved ones' deaths, as easy to recall as morning light through a kitchen window. The rest of lifetime's grief and bliss swirl in a gritty wind. I'm buried in remembrances, dreams with slanting floors where objects shift and vanish. The next poem was prompted by the question, how do we arrive? It's called Origins. I pocketed starlight before I was born, roamed the cosmos, explored the surface of the moon, planned my beginning. I knew by watching. The man hovers over the woman, his talk a warm buzz of love. The woman arranges his favorite cookies on a plate, stirs honey into his tea. They hold hands, walking. I was not yet born, but I knew in this coming life I'd shoulder their sufferings. Do we choose the ones who birth us? The light I collected shone through them. I sprinkled moon dust on their bed. My story as worthy as any other. Who knows how we arrive? If we carry fragments of other lives from the blackness like tiny scars of memory. My next poem is about my babcha, or grandmother. Babcha. Nightly rituals in our shared bedroom. You kneel in front of the bed, pray the rosary. You ask if I'm asleep. Don't wait for a response. Nightly deluge of advice. Stand this way to look slimmer. Don't slump. Let your future husband think he's always right. You retell the prank you played, how you hid your fiancé's fedora every time he'd visit. Your gush of girlish giggles. The only man you dated. A grandfather I wish I'd met. You dole out your sufferings in faltering whispers. Both parents dead from Spanish flu. Home demolished in the Warsaw Uprising. Husband's body in the scorched rubble. My mother's near death after the war. Waited silence when I probe further. I'm dying, aren't I? You asked me. No one here tells me anything. You didn't bother the nurses when in hospital. Walked yourself to the bathroom the day you died. My grandmother was a very strong woman. My parents and grandmother, they went through the Second World War, all of them in Nazi camps. They were born in Poland, but their Nazi camps were in Germany. My brother and I were born in Canada. My mother suffered a lot of health issues because of the war, and she died unexpectedly when she was 69. Now, she comes to me often in my dreams, and we have conversations. Now, the next three are very short poems. They're haiku. I think most of you are familiar with haiku, Japanese form, 3 lines. So I'm just going to read them to you. A screen door ajar, my departed visit in dreams. Not wanting to wake, I linger over tea with my mother. Empty cup filled with her conversation. The next one is a dream, but so real when I have them, and so hard to wake up after. Waiting. Lit cigarette in one hand, red clutch purse in the other. My mother is waiting at the bus stop at the corner of Montgomery and Sherbrooke, an Air Canada suitcase on the pavement. Wait, I say, I need to pack. Her voice directs, don't forget the crystal vase, the one that held your first red rose bouquet, and the lint brush. I cannot find my suitcase. I throw my jeans, 3 summer dresses, roller skates, a frying pan, a purple striped hoodie into a green garbage bag. I cannot find my shoes. I race around the apartment, past crumpled sheets, past my younger self, sitting on the sofa, reading Cosmopolitan. Uncooked porridge stares at me with two raisin eyes in the kitchen. Wait, I'm not ready, I cry down to my mother through the open kitchen window. But she has vanished. A chihuahua tied to the cement post is waiting for someone. The scent of fresh lavender and laundry soap. An element burns hot on the stove. Porridge cooking. Its two raisin eyes, bubbles of heat. Now, the next poem I'm going to read is called If I Were a River, and that's the name of my book. So it's my title poem. If I were a river, I'd flow between this world and a parallel universe where my departed dwell. I'd be greeted by you, my loved ones, splash on shore, rest under another sun. I'd restore your baritone, Father, return with your sky painting, Mother, the tinkle of your voices. Fragments of their color sounds float on my waters. Now, as you recall, like in the introduction, I mentioned that I wrote this book during the pandemic. And in a way, it was good that I was able to write a lot because you couldn't go anywhere. You couldn't do anything. And I'm very fortunate to live on a street that is very small. We're very close. We all know each other pretty well. And there were a lot of amazing things that happened on this street. And so I recorded some of the things that occurred over probably a 9-10 month period. The next poem is called In Lockdown, the Street is Like a Glass Bowl. Children wait, 6 feet apart, on chalk-drawn lines on the cul-de-sac. Hopscotch, snakes and ladders, scooters, skateboards, tinkling bicycle bells. The street, their schoolyard. Street cleaner's icy shower washes away their laughter. Heavy rain splatters balloon bouquets, bobbing, giggling heads. A parade of vehicles beeps horns. Happy birthday posters decorate windshields. The neighbor across the street greets guests. Outstretched arms offer boxed cakes and gift baskets. My wish extended, 6 feet apart, under an umbrella. The street a lake after the downpour. Bird wings splash, dead leaves float, paper-thin corpses. Sun breaks through cloud. I sunbathe in a bird-cage of light on my front step. We emerge in early evening, clanging stainless steel spoons, hand-held bells, drums fashioned with empty coffee tins. We inhale each other's news like oxygen, 6 feet apart. Some neighbors wave, bang pots, call out greetings from open windows. The youngest twirl and march until dusk. Sprites under street lamps. Firmly taped to our mailbox, a carefully printed note and crayon drawing of our 2 homes from the brother and sister in number 14. If you need help, call us. Rose, in her kilt, parades down the street, piping Ode to Joy, Amazing Grace, doors fling open, camera phones flash. The street, a net that holds us, prevents us from drowning. Applause, folding into silence. Now, as I mentioned earlier, my husband Bruce was in hospital in St. John's, Newfoundland for 16 days and quite ill. And I had COVID too. He had COVID and pneumonia. So I couldn't visit him for the first little while. And in that time, I did record like day to day what happened. And that's in the book. If you want to buy it, you can see the day to day, like everything that was going on and everything that he had to deal with and I had to deal with at that time. But I chose to read A Dream Again when he was in hospital. It's called When You Were in Hospital. When you were in hospital, I sat in a room full of doctors dressed in starched white coats, lit my first cigarette in more than 40 years, waited for a doctor to speak. I stood on a mountain wearing the linen blouse, the one you surprised me with. Its yellow radiated across the lake, glinting like midsummer sun. Even the laces in my navy runners transformed into gilded strands. I heard a melody, notes shimmering like birdsong. Not of this world, I told you. How you and I danced and danced. I tell you again, how I looked for you on the mountain and in the murky swimming pool, crying out your name when I couldn't find you. I woke, reaching for your hand, clutching only handfuls of darkness. Now, it was a long recovery, and this next poem talks about that a little bit. After my husband's lengthy illness, I watch you digging, your bent back shouldering the heft of lush soil and the slumped rosebush that failed to flaunt her ruby reds under the expanding canopy of the maple's limbs and leaves. A ball of disheveled roots and bush, ready for resettling, weighs on your shovel. You rest in daylight, set the sun-starved convalescent in the wheelbarrow in a gesture so tender it trembles. Now, it's not all, I know it was all difficult and things like that, but my husband and I, we joke around about everything. And this next poem is lighthearted, and we do this honestly every year. It's called Birthday Party. Maybe death is not the tragedy we imagine, but an unsewn party dress or black suede tuxedo jacket that hangs in the closet waiting. Each year, my husband and I plan our 100th birthday, jokesters that we are. What we'll wear, what we'll eat, who will need a wheelchair, who will or will not be there. Maybe death is an open curtain that lets light in for those whose bodies twist and groan with pain, or those whose minds are prisons of fear. Every year, the guest list dwindles. What if I die before you? We ask. Who will book the dance hall? Send out the invites. Better to get our dance moves right while we can, we say, as we hold each other tight, as we dance the night away. The next one I wrote during the pandemic, but I think it's still relevant somehow today. It's called I Dream Mickey Speaks to the World During the Pandemic. And there's an epigraph at the beginning by Mickey Mouse who says, "Oh, Minnie, you're all the music I'll ever need." We need more joy. The goodness in people's hearts sometimes hidden. Our world somber. A large cloud has entered our souls. A dense fog covers everything. And yet, cotton candy is still sugary on children's lips. Minnie and I still stroll hand in hand through Disney World and Disneyland, memorizing the faces, visiting the attractions again and again, never tiring of the magic. Now is the time for kindness when summer is bursting, still bursting with promise. So thanks again to Candace for believing in my work and publishing both of my books, and to Megan for hosting, and just the opportunity to share my work with you and to read with Susan, which is always such such a joy. And I'm going to end with this poem. It's called Regeneration. Inside each maple, a record in its rings, seasons of drought, deluge, or a forest fire scar. Even in the driest spells, maples produce their whirlybirds. A few emerge as seedlings. Others are eaten or decay. Inside the body, a history in our cells, seasons of passion and love, disease or sorrow. Even in the grimmest times, we give birth knowing we carry Earth's green renewal in our human core. Thank you very much.